The Reverend Robert Fulgham writes in his introduction to the book, A Chosen Faith, about a conversation he had with a woman he met in a neighborhood bookstore. Mr. Fulgham, is it true you're a minister? Yes. Where's your church? You're standing in it. But this is a bookstore and it's Friday. Yes, but you might also choose to see it as a cathedral for the human spirit, a storehouse consecrated to the full spectrum of human experience. Just about every idea we've ever had is in here somewhere. A place containing great thinking is a sacred space. Really? Just what kind of minister are you? Unitarian Universalist. And you hold your services in bookstores on Fridays? You're putting me on. No, but I am giving you an example of how Unitarian Universalists think. More than anything else, our religion is defined by an attitude, an open-minded point of view, about everything and anything. What we have most in common is an uncommon way of looking at the obvious. A church is not a specific building, but also a way of looking at the building you're in at the moment. A minister is not just a person who stands in a pulpit and preaches on Sunday mornings, but also the way some people engage the world. A religion is not contained in a single book. There's something religious in almost every book.
Second reading is by my friend and colleague, the Reverend Dana Worsnop. Often people say they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. And I know just what they're getting at. And I know they aren't quite getting it right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see me in my goodness and dignity, but also see me in my failings and foibles, and who still love me. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox and don't always rush to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support, encourage, even challenge each other to higher and more ethical living. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the promises I make. I want to be with people who know the human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. Well, it's June already, and June marks the annual gathering of Unitarian Universalists from all over the country and the world at General Assembly annual meeting. This year it's being held in Spokane. Now, only 3% of American adults identify as Unitarian Universalists, but when we come together in a big convention center, we seem so much larger than those numbers would indicate. Adults, young people, and children from congregations large and small have the experience of being inspired by the amazing GA choir and the ministers and laypersons who conduct the daily worship services and also the workshops that are held. And yes, Everyone can be exhausted by the busy schedule during those 4 days. The gathering that affirms Unitarian Universalist commitment to transformation of spirits and to justice in this world. How many of you here are planning on attending the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly in Spokane? Right, see you there. GA brings together 3,000 to 5,000 UUs to worship and sing together and to garner new ideas for making our congregations and justice efforts stronger, learn about new religious education programs, and, oh yes, we also vote on issues relating to the association's governance. It is, after all, our denomination's annual business meeting as well. That usually takes up much less of the time than the other activities. Now, for some of us, GA is an annual pilgrimage, an opportunity to renew friendships forged at earlier gatherings and to meet even more interesting UUs. This year, I'm especially looking forward to hearing Richard Blanco, who was President Obama's inaugural poet, and my old friend and colleague, the Reverend Lindy Ramsden, who started the California UU Legislative Advocacy Ministry and is now on the faculty at Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley. Now, it's truly inspiring to be in a large group of UUs. As I said, as a denomination, we number fewer than 200,000 members, but when we get together in that convention center, we certainly sound like a much larger assembly. In fact, that convention center feels like church. As Robert Fulghum said in the earlier reading, we don't need to be in what is commonly seen as a church building. Any place we gather to live our faith is church. The ancient Hebrew prophets recognized this as well. The book of Exodus, the authors wrote, "The place we stand is holy ground." Yes, that convention center along the Spokane River becomes, for those 4 days in June, our church, a religious community where we connect with others who may or may not share our personal interests, concerns, or hopes for the future of our country or the world, and also for this planet we share. But we do share many important things. As Dana Warsnop said in that earlier reading, I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all of those things. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. That is, after all, why we join any religious community. To be with others seeking what it means to live a meaningful life. The former UUA president, the Reverend John Burens, wrote, "To be human is to be religious. To be religious is to make connections. To lead a meaningful life among the many competing forces of the 21st century, each of us needs to support and have support in making meaningful reconnections to the best of our global heritage, the best in other people, and the best in ourselves. Making connections," he adds, "is the essence of the religious experience, expressed in a yearning for community and for fellowship." General Assembly is an exhilarating way to make those connections. It broadens our perspectives about Unitarian Universalism and how others are living our faith in their congregations and in their communities. Many of you cannot attend GA, especially when they're in distant cities. Now this year, some people may carpool to Spokane. It's a little shorter trip. But next year's GA in Providence, Rhode Island is another story, requiring expensive airfare, as well as the cost of a hotel stay and all those meals and other items for several days. Now, for many of us, taking the time away from home is difficult. Our family demands, either as a parent or as a caregiver, jobs, allows for little time away from home. Now, fortunately, there are some ways some of you here at home in Bremerton or surrounding areas can participate. You can do it online. In fact, many congregations stream the final GA worship service on Sunday morning as their congregation's worship service. So members can experience a service that traditionally features a huge choir, usually well over 100 people, and perhaps offers expanded perceptions of our faith. Of course, time, cost, and responsibilities prevent many of us from having the opportunity to meet, socialize with, and connect with UUs from all parts of the world at that time. But are there other ways we can feed our spirits, grow our understanding of ways we live our liberal religious tradition closer to home? Now, our congregations, like Kitsap UU Fellowship, are the center for most of us. And I know many of you work very hard to nurture connections here at KUUF. This is very important, but a healthy fellowship like this one will understand its mission is to be outward looking as well as internally focused. Even as we develop and nurture our spiritual grounding within the congregation, that grounding calls us to live out our faith in the larger world, putting our values into practice through justice or other humanitarian work. National and district gatherings, which we have regularly, also support our congregational connections as we learn with others and strengthen our spirits so we can then live our faith in our own communities. I saw UUs living their religious values just 10 days ago on the steps of the Capitol building in Olympia. They were among the several hundred people rallied in response to the nationwide call to stop the bans on reproductive rights in other states. Those UUs, along with the other people, were living their values of freedom and respect for the rights of women to make decisions about their own body. For that hour, those steps of the legislative building were church. And we UUs in Olympia know our protest was echoed by UUs as well as many, many others all across this country. Another UU experience is available a little closer to home for all of us here in Bremerton. Now, I've never attended Elliott, the UU family camp at Kitsap, which is located not very far from here. But through the years, I've talked with people in the Pacific Northwest who think of Elliott as their church. They go and they attend that as regularly 4 times a year as they attend church. And I learned how deeply connected many in the Pacific Northwest District are to Elliott, how deeply connected, when I was asked by their board to help them develop a covenant for Elliott campers. So I worked with their board for over a year. Now, Elliott, how many of you have been to Elliott? Good. So you are familiar with how that's set up. Elliott's been around for a long time. In fact, in 1947, some Seattle area Unitarians, this was before the merger with Universalists, recalled their happy childhood days at Star Island, a UU conference center and camp off the coast of Maine. And they asked, why not here? They gathered a group to plan a similar conference and camp near Seattle. So originally it was called the Northwest Unitarian Summer Conference, and then it moved to CBAC in 1954. Each year, Elliott offers 4 conferences or sessions during the year for UUs, their families, and friends. Each conference has a theme, so it could be arts and crafts, that sort of thing, and then they have many activities to enhance the experience. In August, when I'm going to be attending, the theme is Shaping Unitarian Universalism into a Multicultural Faith, facilitated by the Reverend Meg Riley, the lead minister of the Church of the Larger Fellowship online church, and Aisha Hauser, Esor UU Church in Bellevue's amazing religious education director and one of the creators of the racial justice workshops that we've had here in the past. They're organizing the programs for adults, youth, and children. And in addition to daily worship and other sessions with Aisha and Meg, there's lots of time to do arts and crafts, relax, swim, explore, celebrate, and develop new friendships. And I feel very fortunate to be there this August, serving as chaplain for the week. So I'm looking forward to my very first Elliott experience. It's good to be reminded that our tradition is not limited to our church buildings, or that religion only happens on Sunday morning. Reminded that we are spiritual beings wherever we are. Throughout our lives, we are learning, growing, and changing creatures. Using our reason and our intuition, we spend our lives seeking to broaden our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. The possibility of growth and change, of transformation, is the real basis for participation in a religious community. And we need in that community the idealism and the camaraderie it offers. When we come together for worship or learning or just fellowship and fun, we find opportunities to explore and affirm our experiences and our relationships to each other, and to deepen our understandings of how human nature binds us to all of creation and to everything that sustains it. When we experience other UU communities, whether it's at Elliott, at GA, or just visiting another congregation, we immediately can recognize that idealism and that camaraderie. You ever think, I have, as you enter a room of people you don't know, that could be anywhere, that person looks like she might be a UU. Yes, we often do see our similarities, including our often reluctant recognition that our faith does not always provide easy answers. The good news is that whether we're here at KUUF or in a workshop at GA, we are in a community where we can explore our questions and search for answers. We UUs are known, of course, for our penchant for talking about questions. One astute observer once noted that Unitarian Universalists asked if they would prefer to go to heaven or to a discussion group about heaven. We'll always opt for the discussion group. So for liberal religious thinkers in those discussion groups, revelation, however you define revelation, is continuous. Together, we can find the spiritual support we need as we grapple with individual and systemic evils in this world, as we work for respect and justice in a broken world that has such need for justice and respect. Together, we can celebrate all that this wonderful life offers and deepen our understanding of our individual and collective role in the wonder of this creation. It really helps to be with people who do not let life's complexities anesthetize our ability to care for justice, to care for others, and to care for this earth. Yes, our communities are holy ground. the holy ground on which we come together to name the good and the evils around us, act for justice, and to grow in love. This fellowship I have often quoted the 20th century theologian A. Powell Davies, who said, "Life is just a chance to grow a soul." We offer in our congregation many ways to grow a soul. We educate newcomers by focusing on religious concepts, ways our non-creedal faith differs from others, on the importance of the covenant, the promises we make to each other about how we come together when we're in a religious community. That a religion is more than ideas. It also has a set of behaviors, practices, ways of being in community. And these ways vary very greatly from one congregation to another. We each have our own cultures, from KUUF to Elliott to JA, from intimate chalice circles to crowded workshops in a convention center, or worshiping with the Unitarians, which some of you have done in our sister churches in Transylvania. In all those ways, we are building relationships. Strengthening of our relationships, I found, was what the Elliott Board was seeking when they decided to develop a covenant for their community. Now, like any organization, they had lots of rules for their campers that all the campers, adults and children, were expected to follow. But what they wanted was something that went beyond rules. They wanted campers to acknowledge the fun, the learning, and recreation Elliott offers, but they also wanted to recognize that inevitably someone will break the rules. And they wanted to have a process so that there was a way to move toward forgiveness and for anyone breaking the rules to be lovingly reconciled into the community again. It affirmed Elliott as a spiritual community as well as a vacation camp made up of people committed to all that Elliott offered, including what it could be when everyone was in right relationship. Their new covenant, already being discussed as a prelude to its adoption this year, expresses the campers' commitment to the values and the relationships that Elliott exists to promote and uphold, even when those relationships are challenged, which inevitably they will be. Elliott, like our congregations or other gatherings of Unitarian Universalists, large or small, thus become places to grow and change. A community that understands itself to be an organic entity that will always be growing and will always be experiencing transformation. Of course, any congregation is a human institution, and challenges can arise. In fact, they're absolutely sure to arise when more than one person gathers in the same space. And when some of these challenges and difficulties arise, some walk away, others step back. We've seen these events on our own congregations and in the Unitarian Universalist Association itself. Fortunately, many remain steadfast through times of disillusionment, centering on our faith's ideals we seek to follow and embody, and then looking for ways to reconcile conflict. Recognizing that institutional as well as personal failure is virtually inevitable, we turn to our covenants, and KUUF has one. We turn to our covenants as reminders that failure is another opportunity to reaffirm our commitments and rebuild community. Restoration of relationships requires extraordinary patience, tolerance, and yes, the capacity to forgive. These are spiritual gifts learned in real community, and we cannot create rules around that. That's why it's called a spiritual practice. And these are spiritual gifts, and we learn them within our communities. As you use, we can learn and experience many ways. Experience honor, affirmation, freedom, commitment, and even salvation. Now, please understand I use the word salvation here not as a ticket or some sort of passport into another world at death, but as the recognition that right here, in this place today, we have an opportunity to be more than we currently are, to become complete, to find wholeness, health, and yes, even salvation. GA, camps, congregations offer opportunities to be together in meaningful ways, to have face-to-face relationships and grow personally and spiritually. But again, they're not the only reason for the liberal church. As you use, we also have a responsibility to be agents of transformation. And as a body, we have the power to make our faith values real. I'm sure that Meg Riley and Asha Hauser, in their August program at Elliott, which is called Shaping Unitarian Universalism into a Multicultural Faith, will offer lots of ideas how each one of us can make that shaping a reality by guiding the group to think critically about our life experiences, our cultural context, our history, and our faith perspective. And then they'll offer us some ideas on ways to take action to move toward being a wholly multicultural religious community. Liberal religions, like Unitarian Universalism, are rooted in a theology of engagement. And this means that we are constantly in dialogue with the culture, seeking to understand the history of others in terms of their experiences of oppression and freedom, exploitation, and justice. Do we believe, asked Unitarian Universalist theologian Dr. Thandika, do we think and believe that to simply think about an issue is the same as to live in a way which exemplifies our concern for the issue? And she asked this question specifically of Unitarian Universalists and nudges us, I think, rather gently toward engagement by focusing on hope. Hope in our own lives, hope in this world. History is mined by all of us in order to understand not only just what happened, but what could have been and what still could be. It means using history to project a more hopeful future by envisioning the future we want to see as a source of hope. Liberation theologian Gustavo Gutierrez tells us the commitment to the creation of a just society and ultimately a new humanity presupposes confidence in the future. Unitarian Universalism has always been a hopeful faith, and sometimes accused of being of unfounded optimism. But as a hopeful and justice-seeking faith, we are called to identify with and respond to the needs of those who have suffered oppression, whether it's economic, social, or racial, ethnic. We must ask ourselves and our congregations, wherever we gather, how do we bring our UU principles into practice when we witness the painful experience of the homeless, the refugee, the young unarmed black man shot in his front yard, the desecrated Jewish synagogue or Muslim mosque? One of the purposes of religion is to offer people the opportunity to search for that meaning, to make connections, to seek spiritual transformation. Our congregations, General Assembly, or Elliott camps are those places where everyone's uniqueness and individual search for meaning are to be welcomed and celebrated, where it is safe to bring our personal experience into the religious conversation. Theologian Martin Buber wrote, "The real essence of community is to be found in the fact that it has a center." For Unitarian Universalists, that center can be seen in our commitment to our principles, to freedom, and to justice. We are not united by common beliefs, but by common purposes and intentions. Our communities are defined by a center and our relationship to that center. The center held in place through a commitment to the covenant that we share together. Our covenant, whether here at KUF, at GA or Elliott, or in a Transylvanian church, is a reminder that despite our differing theologies, lifestyles, politics, and opinions, we are united by common purposes and our intentions to, in the words of one of my favorite hymns, to build a world that binds up the broken, where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning, to build a promised land that can be. So may it be.